You are standing in the most important room in the ancient world. It is night. The air is cool, carrying the faint smell of cedar oil and old parchment. Around you, row upon row of scrolls stretch into the shadows, hundreds of thousands of them, more than any single mind could read in a lifetime. Somewhere deeper in the building, the quiet scratch of a reed pen against papyrus. A scholar works by lamplight. He does not look up. He does not know what is coming. None of them do. And that is exactly the horror of this story. Not the fire, not the swords, not the emperors who looked away. The horror is the silence that came after. The questions that were never answered because the men who held the answers were gone, and the words they left behind turned to ash. This is the story of the great library of Alexandria, and it is the story of everything the world forgot it ever knew. To call it a library is to misunderstand it entirely. In the 3rd century before Christ, the Library of Alexandria was not a place where people came to read quietly and leave. It was a living institution, a machine for the accumulation of human thought. Ships entering Alexandria's harbor were boarded and searched, not for weapons, but for books. Any scroll found was confiscated, copied, and cataloged. The original, in many cases, was kept. The copy was returned. The rulers of Alexandria did not want access to knowledge. They wanted to own it, all of it. Every language, every tradition, every idea that had ever been pressed into clay or rolled onto papyrus. They wanted to gather the mind of the entire ancient world into a single building on the Egyptian coast. And for a time, they succeeded. Scholars were drawn from Greece, from Babylon, from Persia, from across the Mediterranean. They measured the circumference of the earth with extraordinary precision. They mapped the stars. They theorized about the movement of the sun, about the nature of disease, about the structure of the human body. Ideas moved through those halls not as rare and sacred objects, but as working material, to be challenged, refined, and built upon. The library was not a monument to the past. It was an engine of the future. At its height, it held an estimated 400,000 scrolls, perhaps more. Even the accounting of what was lost has been partially lost. The first wound came with fire. Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria in 48 BC, drawn into a civil war he had not planned to fight. The harbor became a battlefield. Ships burned. And at some point, in the chaos, part of the library caught flame. Historians have never agreed on exactly what was destroyed or how much. Some ancient writers describe the burning in catastrophic terms. Others barely mention it. What is certain is that something irreplaceable was lost. Caesar survived. He sailed away. He wrote his memoirs. Whether he ever fully understood what had burned, no one knows. But to blame Caesar alone is to misread the nature of this destruction. The library did not fall in a single night. It bled slowly, across centuries, through political instability, religious conflict, and civilizational decline. As Rome's grip weakened, so did the institutions that had sustained Alexandria. The patronage that funded scholars dried up. The 4th century brought new religious authorities who viewed ancient philosophy not as wisdom, but as danger. Temples were closed. Texts were condemned. The great Serapeum Temple was destroyed in 391 AD. The philosopher Hypatia, mathematician, astronomer, one of the last great thinkers of the Alexandrian tradition, was murdered by a mob in 415 AD. Not for what she had done, but for what she represented, a way of understanding the world that powerful men had decided the world no longer needed. Knowledge did not burn all at once. It disappeared paragraph by paragraph, scroll by scroll, in fires and in silence, through neglect and through intent. What was lost is almost impossible to measure, and that impossibility is its own kind of grief. We know the names of works we will never read. plays by Sophocles and Euripides that survive only as fragments, astronomical models that might have accelerated human understanding of the cosmos by centuries, entire frameworks for understanding disease, the body, the natural world, erased before they could reach the tradition that would eventually become modern science. Some ideas proposed in Alexandria were not rediscovered in the Western world until the Renaissance, 1,000 years later. 1,000 years of questions that did not need to be asked again, if only the answers had survived. We look for villains in this story, because a story without a villain feels incomplete. And all of them, Caesar, Theodosius, the mob that killed Hypatia, bear some portion of responsibility. But the deeper truth is harder to accept. The library fell because knowledge has no natural armor. Empires fall loudly, with battles and burning cities and names in the histories of the victors. Knowledge disappears quietly. A scroll is not copied, and it rots. A teacher dies, and no student carries the lineage forward. A building is repurposed. A tradition is outlawed. A language stops being spoken, and what was contained within those forms simply ceases to exist. No single hand destroyed the Library of Alexandria. It was destroyed by everything human civilization tends to do when it is frightened, or distracted, or certain it already knows enough. If you stood in Alexandria today, you would find a modern city. Noise, light, traffic, millions of people going about their lives. The ancient harbor is underwater. The great colonnades are gone. Nothing marks exactly where the library stood. Somewhere beneath the city, or scattered across 1,000 years of loss, are the ashes of things we do not even know we are missing. Questions we keep asking, not knowing they were already answered once. The Library of Alexandria was not just a building. It was a version of human civilization, one that believed the world could be known, that knowledge was worth protecting, that the ideas of strangers deserved a shelf and a lamp. That version burned, and the world has been asking what it lost ever since.